What's the story, lads? Welcome back to GAA Fan TV. My name is Aaron. I hope the form is well. I hope the form is good. The intercounty season is only a couple of months away now, or less than a month you could say really, and the GAA season is fast approaching, and before we know it, the National Leagues will have kicked off and the All-Ireland Senior Football and Senior Hurling Championships will be right there in front of us. And who are the 10 footballers to watch in 2022? I mean, we see this every year really in the GAA, where players burst on the scene, come out of nowhere, produce absolutely brilliant performances from their county, and really, I suppose, add that extra bit of ingredients maybe to a particular county that they were looking for. We've seen Mayo do this brilliantly in the last couple of years with the introduction of players like Oisin Mullen and Ryan O'Donoghue and Tommy Conroy. Dublin were doing it for years with the likes of OCallaghan and Cormac Costello, and even when Brian Fenton broke on the scene. And even you're seeing players in Tyrone like Dara Canavan coming through the ranks as well, and you're seeing in Armagh they've been bringing through a lot of very good players in the past couple of years as well. But who are the players that could make that breakthrough season in 2022? Who are the players that could really make a huge impact for their county in 2022? That is going to be the topic of today's video. We're going to be looking at 10 footballers to watch in 2022. Now, a lot of these players haven't played too much for the senior side. Maybe they might have made one or two appearances here and there. So some of the obvious up-and-coming young players who would have played last year are not included on this list. So just bear that in mind. And obviously, this is my choice. These are my 10 players to watch out for. But feel free to let me know down in the comments below if there is anyone I have missed. So without further ado, let's get straight into it.
Nowadays, you got to have that, because people nowadays.
Before we get straight into the podcast, I just want to give a huge shout out to our sponsors, Declan Kirby GAA Star. Declan Kirby GAA Star Championship Journey. It's a series of GAA team children's books written by primary school teacher and GAA coach Michael Egan. You can check it out in the link in the description down below, of course, as well. Follow the trials and tribulations of Declan Kirby and his team at Smithgreen Gaelic Football Club, recently formed but promising GAA team. The book is now available in Easons and all good bookshops, so check it out in the description down below, and let's get straight into it. So we are going to be going in no particular order here. There's no point really ranking these 10 footballers when we haven't seen them play at the senior level just yet. But probably one of the players that I think a lot of people will be most excited to see is Jack Bryant, and that is of course of Offaly. He was part of Offaly's resounding under-20 success last year as Offaly won their first under-20 All-Ireland Football Championship in, 32 years. And a phenomenal achievement really for Offaly senior footballer to do what they done last year and achieve that success. He scored 1-2 in the final, and including that decisive goal, his goal in that final turned out to be the big difference as Offaly ended up winning that game by 2 points. He was actually the top scorer in the under-20 football championship last year as well. He scored a total of 422 in the 5 games in the under-20 football championship. Now, there is a mixed opinion as to whether, the Offaly senior management, John Mon, should introduce a lot of the under-20 footballers into the panel for next year. I know Cian Farrell suffered a big injury during the Offaly Club Senior Football Championship, so maybe there is a slot available there for one of the young lads to come through. And I do think, look, whilst you have this success of those underage players, and whilst you are bringing through these players, why not get them involved in the senior team? You can get them involved in the under-20 team as well. But as we've seen with the way the championship is structured, Offaly will probably have 7 league games, and then maybe one Leinster a couple of Leinster Championship games, and maybe a qualifier or a Tailteann Cup or whatever. So, I think there is definitely a place for Jack Bryant to be involved. I don't think Offaly are the type of county that could use all the players that you could potentially have, and I could see him maybe getting involved in 2022. So Jack Bryant of Offaly, top scorer in the under-20 football championship last year, certainly one to watch out for. And the next player on the list is certainly a player who's been catching the eye down in my own native county of Dublin, and he's definitely been a player that a lot of Dublin fans have been excited for quite a number of years now, and that is Lee Gannon. The Whitehall Comkill man has looked absolutely brilliant for the under-20s in the past couple of years. He's also a brilliant hurler as well, so it's not actually a given that he'll play with the footballers, and we'll see whether he actually chooses to play with the footballers or the hurlers. As we very well know, with Dublin, it's not like a lot of their players, their under-20 players, go straight into the senior team. A lot of those players would go into development squads, and they'd have to essentially work their way up. But given the fact that Dublin didn't look particularly brilliant last year, obviously been beaten in that All-Ireland semi-final by Mayo, there is a place in his position. So he likes to play in around wing back. He can also play at corner back, and he can also play in midfield as well. I do think there's a position available there. You've seen Jack McCaffrey obviously opt out in recent years. It doesn't look like he's going to be coming back this year. Robbie McDade has struggled a little bit with injuries. Owen Merchant struggled with injuries. So there is a potential for that position there, and he is a very forward thinking, attacking wing back, and we've seen Dublin introduce a lot of these players in the last couple of years, and we've seen with how Gaelic football has developed in recent seasons, having a player in that kind of position that can get forward and chip away with a couple of points is absolutely crucial. And I think it's something that Dublin missed hugely last year. Robbie McDade was injured. Owen Merchant came back in the Mayo game, but then ended up going off in extra time. So there's definitely a position there available for the Dubs, and I think Lee Gannon might be the perfect man to come in there. Next up is Adam McDermott of Roscommon. Roscommon were beaten by Offaly in that Under-20 Football Championship final, like we said before, and he's one of the up-and-coming players for Roscommon at the minute. That's certainly on the lips of many Roscommon fans. He scored 410 across the 5 games in the Under-20 Football Championship, and similar to his counterpart in Jack Bryant, he also scored 1-2 in the final as well. And Roscommon, very well known for bringing through young players in the past 10 to 15 years or so. They've done a very good job at integrating under-20 footballers eventually into the senior team. Sometimes a little slower than usual, but generally a lot of the top players will eventually make it into that team. And look, the age profile of the Roscommon senior footballers is fairly decent, but given the fact they had a very disappointing year last year, losing every game in both league and championship, there's definitely room for 1 or 2 fresh faces to come into that team. Their squad and panel largely hasn't changed in the last couple of seasons, so I think this could definitely be a year for a player like Adam McDermott to come into the side and potentially make an impact. So definitely a player worth watching out for, Adam McDermott of Roscommon. We then have Paul O'Shea of Kerry, and this is definitely probably one of the most exciting players on this list. He scored 1-2 in that defeat to Cork in the Under-20 Munster Football Championship in 2021. So we didn't really get to see the best of him, or we didn't really get to see much of him, unfortunately, in 2021 because Kerry were defeated in that game. But he is a very, very good player. I've seen a lot of I've seen Sean O'Sullivan was speaking in the media there maybe a couple of months ago and was making the comparison between him and David Clifford. He actually is a relation to David Clifford as well. He's actually his first cousin. So, he's a very, very top-class footballer, Paul O'Shea. He's been a player that a lot of people have been speaking about coming through the ranks with Kerry at the minute. I suppose the only problem in terms of some of the other players, you could see them making an impact for their county in 2021. I think Kerry have a whole host of forwards at the minute, and Paul O'Shea is another player who can play in around the half forwards and in a full forward as well. So they have a whole host of players already in there, and you've got players who can't even make it into the team like Killian Spillane, and obviously Tony Brosnan's another player who's broke through in the last couple of years. So will Paul O'Shea make that step up into the Kerry senior footballers? I'm not sure. Maybe it'll be another few years, yeah. Maybe he'll go into a development squad, or maybe he has another year with the under-20s. I'm not too sure. But, I think Paul O'Shea is definitely a player worth watching out for. He's definitely been a player a lot of people have been speaking about in Kerry for quite a long time. So, yeah, definitely Paul O'Shea, one to watch out for. And the 5th player on this list is Aidan OMalley of Mayo. And, of course, there was going to be a couple of Mayo footballers in this list because Mayo, probably one of the most notable counties to bring through a lot of young players in the last 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, a lot of their players, even in their current squad, have only really come on the scene in the past 2 or 3 years or so. And Aidan OMalley is definitely another player that could do so. He did actually make a couple of senior appearances in 2021. He actually came off the bench in the All-Ireland final against Tyrone late on in that game, but obviously by then the game was very much already over. He's a part of Knockmore's success as well, of course, in the Mayo Club Senior Football Championship, winning back-to-back county titles, and he's been brilliant for Knockmore this year as well. Very young player, brilliant off both feet, can hit a couple of brilliant points from range as well, and he's definitely been a player that a lot of people have been speaking about. I've seen on Twitter someone call him the Mayo Messi, so maybe that's an early sort of... maybe that's a bit premature, but look, when you look at the track record of some of the Mayo players that they've brought through in recent seasons, Ryan O'Donoghue, Tommy Conroy, you've got players like Jordan Flynn, Mark Moran can't really get into the team at the minute, and he was looking brilliant when he first came through. So there's a whole host of players coming through the ranks with Mayo at the minute, and Aidan OMalley definitely a player worth watching out for, and I would suspect he'll definitely get a lot of game time throughout the league this year. And next is Kieran McConnell of Armagh, and that's definitely a familiar name, the second name McConnell, and that is because he is the nephew of Oisin McConnell. I'm not too sure if he's going to be involved with the under-20s this year or whether he might be involved with the seniors this year. Interesting enough, we were speaking, of course, about Oisin McConnell. He's actually going to be the manager of the Armagh under-20s this year, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But he scored 24 points for Crossmaglen in the 2021 Armagh Senior Football Championship. He's been absolutely brilliant for Crossmaglen Rangers, and he hasn't really made the step up to the Armagh Senior Footballers yet, but this may just be the year that he makes an impact. It will be tough to see whether Armagh make too many changes to their panel with the fact that they're in Division 1 and they will want to solidify in Division 1, so I'd imagine they'll be going, as strong as possible. They probably can't afford to rotate too much in the National League pyramid. So, I think Armagh are looking pretty good going into Division 1, and I think Kieran McConnell will definitely be a player that could maybe make an impact, and he's definitely a player worth keeping an eye on for the Armagh Senior Footballers, and not just because of his relation there with Oisin, but he has been a player that's been doing very well for Crossmaglen over the past couple of years, and maybe 2022 might be the year he makes an impact for the Armagh Senior Footballers. And next on the list is Sheila Johnston of Down, and I suppose we know the influence of the Johnston brothers over Down club-based side Kilcoo, who've done absolutely brilliant in the Down Club Senior Football Championship over the last couple of years, and obviously they're currently in an Ulster Club Senior Football Championship final, which takes place in a couple of weeks. So, Sheila Johnston's looked very good for Down. He's looked very, very good for Kilcoo. He's brilliant at hitting a couple of points. He's that link man in behind that links it all together, and he also played a big part in landing Down's under-20 Ulster Senior Football Championship success in 2021 as well. He scored 1-6 in 4 games in the under-20 Football Championship, and as I said before, the man who very much links it all together, the man to pick out a couple of passes in front of him, whether it be Jerome Johnston or some of the other Kilcoo lads in there as well. Now, the only kind of caveat maybe holding him back from making, a couple of senior appearances in 2022 is the fact that Kilcoo are probably likely to come through Ulster and are probably likely maybe to go all the way in the All-Ireland, which would mean he might not get as much game time in terms of pre-season tournaments. He probably won't play any games there, and he'll probably be late coming back to the Down Senior Footballers, and maybe it'll be late in the league or potentially early in the championship, and maybe he'll just go straight in with the under-20s and Down won't play him. But look, I think Down obviously struggled a lot last year. They're probably one of the favourites to get relegated down to Division 3 this year or in 2022. I'm just mixing up all my years, to be honest with you, so bear with me if I call 2021 2022, or I even call the years 2020, because it's very easy to mix up all these years. It feels like we're still stuck in the 1 year. But anyway, I think Sheila Johnston is a player worth watching out for Down, and he could be a part of that team, because Down are looking for fresh faces. They need to make a couple of changes to their panel, because last year was certainly a very disappointing one for the Down Senior Footballers. 8th on the list is Jack Carney of Mayo, another up-and-coming Mayo player, and as we said before, Mayo very notably known for bringing through a lot of very good up-and-coming under-20 footballers in the last couple of years, and Jack Carney might just be the player who comes in there. He can play in midfield, he can also play at wing-back as well, and obviously with the fact that Oisin Mullen looks like he's potentially going over to Australia. Now, at the time of this recording, that still hasn't been confirmed. I'm not too sure what the hold-up is there, but if Oisin Mullen maybe does go to Australia, we could see Jack Carney maybe slotting a cornerback, maybe even at wing back as well. So he could be a potential replacement. He could also go in midfield as well, and I think Mayo, Jeremy O'Connor is definitely getting older. He probably, I'm not too sure how many years he probably has left in the tank at this stage. He probably still has another 2 or 3 years left in the tank, to be fair, but Matt Truan is definitely obviously the number 1 midfielder at Mayo in terms of last year, and he can also play in midfield as well. And look, if they can earth another top class midfielder in there, it might just help Mayo massively in 2021 or 2022, I should say, because I did feel that their midfield struggled a bit in that All-Ireland final against Tyrone, and maybe if Jack Carney comes in there, he might be the man to make an impact. So I'd certainly keep an eye out for Jack Carney of Mayo. He's been a player that a lot of Mayo fans have been speaking about over the last couple of years, so keep an eye on him. And next up on the list, we've Tom OCallaghan of Galway. And Tom OCallaghan has definitely been one of the top performers in the Under-20 Football Championship for Galway in the last couple of years. In particular, in the 2020 Under-20 Football Championship, he was absolutely brilliant. He scored 1-6 in the final against the Dubs. He also scored 1-1 against Roscommon as well. So he's definitely been a player that's been coming through the ranks for Galway at the minute. He was involved actually with the Galway senior footballers last year, and he made 1 or 2 appearances coming off the bench. So he's definitely a player worth watching out for, and I think with Galway they will want to introduce maybe a couple of more young talents and young players in Division 2 in the National Football League. I think the fact that they're in Division 2 maybe gives them a bit more of a licence to introduce a couple of young players, as opposed to maybe being in Division 1 when they wouldn't want to be relegated, for example. So, you know, I think they will introduce a couple of young players in there. We've seen them do it in the past couple of seasons with the likes of Jack Glynn and Matthew Tierney coming through, Matthew Cooley potentially coming through as well. So I think Tom OCallaghan is another one. I think he was probably one of the best players for Galway when they won the Under-20 Football Championship back in 2020, 2 years ago. So, you know, he's looking very good at the minute. I would suspect that Pádraig Joyce will certainly want to introduce him more into the team in 2021. And brilliant at getting forward, brilliant at driving runs as well and creating that space. Always a good man for the goals as well. So Tom OCallaghan of Galway, one to watch out for in 2022. And last but not least, we have Blake Murphy of Cork. And Blake Murphy of Cork has definitely been a player on the lips of many people in the past couple of years, especially Cork fans, with the fact that Cork have introduced a lot of very good young players in the past couple of years. I mean, they've had a lot of success at under-20 level and minor level as well. So we are starting to see a lot of those players potentially come onto the scene and come into the team now. And with Keith Ricken obviously having been involved with the under-20s before, I would suspect to see a lot more players potentially coming through, maybe the likes of Mark Cronin as well. Maybe a bit early for Conor Corbett to come into the side, but Blake Murphy is definitely a player, very, very quick, very agile, a very hard player to dispossess once he has the ball. He scored 1-3 in that defeat in the under-20 2020 Football Championship. He scored 1-3 in that game against Kerry in that defeat, and he's definitely been a player that has been looking very good for Cork, very good at club level as well. So yeah, Blake Murphy coming through the ranks at the minute with the Cork senior footballers. I would suspect that Keith Ricken will give a lot more younger players a bit more game time in the 2022 National Football League and potentially in the Championship as well. So yeah, Blake Murphy will be coming through there in my opinion. And before we finish up, we'll just look through some honourable mentions. And I did put out a post over on the GAA Fan TV Instagram. If you're not following over on Instagram, it's at GAA Fan TV. Make sure you get over and follow. We do a number of daily posts over there, questions, all the rest, for some of you lads to get involved in over there. So these were some of the players that were mentioned, and also some more players that I think might potentially make an impact for their county in 2022. So Colin Walsh of Roscommon is definitely one who could come through there. Lorcan O'Dell of Dublin. Kieran Archer of Dublin is another one that really could make it a standout season for the Dublin senior footballers. The reason why I haven't included him in the top 10 was because he was expected to come through last year and he didn't. So I'm not too sure what the story is with him, but I do think surely he's going to be part of the panel for pre-season tournaments and at least on the bench for a couple of the league games. With Kevin McManaman obviously having retired as well, like there is another spot available there. And I think Kieran Archer might just be the man to come through there. Conor O'Donnell of Donegal, Conor Love of Fermanagh is another one being talked about there. Mark Cronin of Cork, Conal Dempsey of Mayo. He's looked very good at under 20 level, and he's looked very good for the Knockmore senior footballers as well, so he could come through there. Paul Walsh of Kerry, let's not forget he was minor footballer of the year back in 2018. Maybe we might see him break through into the senior team with Kerry in 2021. Dylan Casey is another player of Kerry worth mentioning. Cormac Egan of Offaly. I mean, Jack Bryant was brilliant for the Offaly senior footballers, but Cormac Egan was equally brilliant. The reason why I don't think Cormac Egan will play with the Offaly senior footballers in 2022 is because he did only just turn 18, I believe, just before that under-20 football championship started. So he's probably still got another 1 or 2 years left with the under-20 footballers, so I don't think maybe we'll see him in 2022 with Offaly just yet. Richie Donnelly of Tyrone, he could potentially make an impact there. Dara Craig of Roscommon. Dara Craig looked very good for the under 20 footballers there. Andrew Gilmore of Down has looked very impressive as well. And Sean O'Connor of Tipperary was one of the top scorers in the under 20 football championship for Tipperary, and he maybe could make an impact for Tipperary with the fact that they've had a couple of retirements in the past couple of seasons. So yeah, there's some honourable mentions, but feel free to let me know down in the comments below if there's any players I've missed out on. But anyway, lads, we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Do let me know down in the comments below what players will you be watching out for in the Allianz National Football League and the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship in 2022. What players will you be keeping an eye on? Let me know down in the comments below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you do enjoy this content, hit the notifications bell, share it out to your friends and family. Helps the channel grow. And yeah, I very much appreciate all the comments, all the support in the past couple of weeks. And yeah, more videos to come soon, more season previews, podcasts, all the rest. So yeah, my name's Aaron, and I'll see you all in the next one.